Chapter 11, Part 2 of Sons and Lovers. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain and is read by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Sons and Lovers by D.H. Lawrence. Chapter 11, Part 2. She was very quiet, very calm. She only realized that she was doing something for him. He could hardly bear it. She lay to be sacrificed for him because she loved him so much, and he had to sacrifice her. For a second he wished he was sexless or dead. Then he shut his eyes again to her, and his blood beat back again. And afterwards he loved her to the last fibre of his being. He loved her, but he wanted somehow to cry. There was something he could not bear for her sake. He stayed with her till quite late at night. As he rode home, he felt that he was finally initiated. He was a youth no longer. But why had he the dull pain in his soul? Why did the thought of death, the afterlife, seem so sweet and consoling? He spent the week with Miriam, and wore her out with his passion before it was gone. He had always, almost wilfully, to put her out of count and act from the brute strength of his own feelings. And he could not do it often, and there remained afterwards always the sense of failure and of death. If he were really with her, he had to put aside himself and his desire. If he would have her, he had to put her aside. "When I come to you," he asked her, his eyes dark with pain and shame, "you don't really want me, do you?" "Ah, yes," she replied quickly. He looked at her. "Nay," he said. She began to tremble. "You see," she said, taking his face and shutting it out against her shoulder, "you see, as we are, how can I get used to you? It would come all right if we were married." He lifted her head and looked at her. "You mean now it is always too much shock?" "Yes, and—" "You are always clenched against me." She was trembling with agitation. "You see," she said, "I'm not used to the thought." "You are lately," he said. "But all my life mother said to me, 'There is one thing in marriage that is always dreadful, but you have to bear it.' And I believed it." "And still believe it," he said. "No!" she cried hastily. "I believe, as you do, that loving, even in that way, is the high-water mark of living." "That doesn't alter the fact that you never want it." "No," she said, taking his head in her arms and rocking in despair. "Don't say so. You don't understand." She rocked with pain. "Don't I want your children?" "But not me." "How can you say so? But we must be married to have children." "Shall we be married, then? I want you to have my children." He kissed her hand reverently. She pondered sadly, watching him. "We are too young," she said at length. 24 and 23. "Not yet," she pleaded as she rocked herself in distress. "When you will," he said. She bowed her head gravely. The tone of hopelessness in which he said these things grieved her deeply. It had always been a failure between them. Tacitly she acquiesced in what he felt. And after a week of love he said to his mother suddenly one Sunday night, just as they were going to bed, "I shan't go so much to Miriam's, mother." She was surprised, but she would not ask him anything. "You please yourself," she said. So he went to bed. But there was a new quietness about him which she had wondered at. She almost guessed. She would leave him alone, however. Precipitation might spoil things. She watched him in his loneliness, wondering where he would end. He was sick, and much too quiet for him. There was a perpetual little knitting of his brows, such as she had seen when he was a small baby, and which had been gone for many years. Now it was the same again, and she could do nothing for him. He had to go on alone, make his own way. He continued faithful to Miriam. For one day he had loved her utterly, but it never came again. The sense of failure grew stronger. At first it was only a sadness. Then he began to feel he could not go on. He wanted to run, to go abroad, anything. Gradually he ceased to ask her to have him. Instead of drawing them together, it put them apart. And then he realized, consciously, that it was no good. It was useless trying. It would never be a success between them. For some months he had seen very little of Clara. They had occasionally walked out for half an hour at dinner-time, but he always reserved himself for Miriam. With Clara, however, his brow cleared, and he was gay again. She treated him indulgently, as if he were a child. He thought he did not mind, but deep below the surface it piqued him. Sometimes Miriam said, "What about Clara? I hear nothing of her lately." "I walked with her about 20 minutes yesterday," he replied. "And what did she talk about?" "I don't know. I suppose I did all the jawing. I usually do. I think I was telling her about the strike, and how the women took it." "Yes." So he gave the account of himself. But insidiously, without his knowing it, the warmth he felt for Clara drew him away from Miriam, for whom he felt responsible, and to whom he felt he belonged. He thought he was being quite faithful to her. It was not easy to estimate exactly the strength and warmth of one's feelings for a woman till they have run away with one. He began to give more time to his men friends. There was Jessup at the art school, Swain, who was chemistry demonstrator at the university, Newton, who was a teacher, besides Edgar and Miriam's younger brothers. Pleading work he sketched and studied with Jessup. He called in the university for Swain, and the two went downtown together. Having come home in the train with Newton, he called and had a game of billiards with him in the Moon and Stars. If he gave to Miriam the excuse of his men friends, he felt quite justified. His mother began to be relieved. He always told her where he had been. During the summer Clara wore sometimes a dress of soft cotton stuff with loose sleeves. When she lifted her hands, her sleeves fell back, and her beautiful strong arms shone out. "Half a minute!" he cried. "Hold your arm still." He made sketches of her hand and arm, and the drawings contained some of the fascination the real thing had for him. Miriam, who always went scrupulously through his books and papers, saw the drawings. "I think Clara has such beautiful arms," he said. "Yes. When did you draw them?" "On Tuesday, in the workroom. You know, I've got a corner where I can work. Often I can do every single thing they need in the department before dinner. Then I work for myself in the afternoon, and just see to things at night." "Yes," she said, turning the leaves of his sketch-book. Frequently he hated Miriam. He hated her as she bent forward and pored over his things. He hated her way of patiently casting him up, as if he were an endless psychological account. When he was with her, he hated her for having got him, and yet not got him, and he tortured her. She took all and gave nothing, he said. At least, she gave no living warmth. She was never alive, and giving off life. Looking for her was like looking for something which did not exist. She was only his conscience, not his mate. He hated her violently, and was more cruel to her. They dragged on till the next summer. He saw more and more of Clara. At last he spoke. He had been sitting working at home one evening. There was between him and his mother a peculiar condition of people frankly finding fault with each other.